Hi, first graders. So right now you are in Success with Miss Albin, and we still do not have internet here at Lincoln School. So what I'm doing right now, I'm recording a video on my phone. I'm going to upload it to YouTube. I'm going to post it on Seesaw, and hopefully you will be able to watch it and do the activity. So let's get started, shall we? Alright, for science today I had planned a game, and I still want you to do the game, except we're not going to be able to do it together. I want you to think about it, alright? Inside this bag, I have our next topic, okay? Did you hear it? It's hard. They're both hard. I can hold it like this. I can hold both of them like that, actually. Put my hand around it. What do you think? Oh, there's two. They're different colors. One is green and one is red. They have a stem. They kind of smell sweet. They're a fruit. First graders, do you think you know what it is? What do you think is inside this bag? What do you think we're going to talk about next for science? I'm going to show you and I'm going to see if you think you're right. It's a green apple. It's a red apple. First graders, did you think apples? Because if you did, you were right. We're going to start learning about apples. Oh, I love apples. I love this time of year. We talked this morning in our morning meeting how it's almost fall. Fall time means harvest time, which means apple orchards, apple cider, so many good things. So first graders, we're going to start talking about apples today, and I'm going to read a story to start. It is called The Apple Orchard Riddle. Look at all those different kinds of apples. The kids in Mr. Tuffin's class were going on a field trip. "Hurry up, Tara," said Robert. "You'll miss the bus." So Tara's a little behind them. Tara took a seat by herself next to the window. She liked to look outside and wonder about things. "Tara's in dreamland again," said Anna. "The lights are on, but nobody's home," said Eleanor. "Oh, that's not very kind." Tara didn't hear them. She was too busy daydreaming. When they got to the apple orchard, everybody hurried off the bus. Everybody except for Tara. Tara walked off slowly. "It takes me a little more time to do things," she said. "Yeah, I've noticed," said Mr. Tuffin. "That's okay." The class gathered around the orchard's owner, Farmer Hills. "Today," she said, "we're going to take a tour of the orchard. We'll see how apples are picked and how cider is pressed. We will watch apples get peeled by a special machine, and we'll pick some off of the trees. Plus, I have a riddle for you to solve," said Mr. Tuffin. "What's the riddle?" asked Charlie. Mr. Tuffin said, "Show me a little red house with no windows and no door, but with a star inside." "That's it," said Jake. "That's the riddle?" "That's the riddle," said Mr. Tuffin. "Your job is to find the answer." "How are we going to have time to figure this out while we also have to learn about apples?" asked Molly. "Are you sure this is even fair?" "Yes, I'm sure," said Mr. Tuffin. "I'm not very good at tests," Tara said. "Well, that's lucky, because this is not a test," said Mr. Tuffin. The class walked along a path lined with trees, stretching away as far as they could see. "We grow 20 varieties of apples here," Farmer Hill said. "Who can name some apple varieties?" "Macintosh," said Alex. "Granny Smith," said Jeremy. "Ooh, Crispin, Fuji, Gala, Red Delicious, Golden Delicious, Macoun." "Thank you, Eleanor," said Jeremy. "Our varieties ripen at different times, so we pick them from late summer to early fall," said Farmer Hills. "These pointy ladders are what we use to pick the apples off of the highest branches." "I'm so tall I probably wouldn't even need a ladder," said Robert. "Probably not," said Farmer Hills. These branches are so low we can all reach, said Charlie. That's right, said Farmer Hills. Only pick apples off of the trees, not off of the ground. To pick an apple, twist the stem till the fruit comes off of the branch. She showed the class how to do it and gave them each a small bag for holding apples. They twisted and picked until their bags were full. Tara didn't pick any apples. Instead, she sat under a tree and looked at the sky. What was that riddle again? She asked. Show me a little red house with no windows and no door, but with a star inside, said Eleanor, who was good at tests. There was an apple on the branch right above Tara's head. Tara twisted it off. This is red, she said. Farmer Hills showed the class where the apples were stored. We keep the apples cold and fresh in the storage barn, she said. That way, folks can enjoy them all year round. Jake noticed something about the building. A red house, said Jake. And look, no windows. But it has 2 doors, said Anna. And Farmer Hills just said it had apples inside, not stars, said Eleanor. So this is not the answer to the riddle, said Jake. Correct, said Eleanor. Tara wasn't looking at the barn. She was looking at her apple. She saw a tiny worm burrowing into it. Hey, look who lives here, she said. Ugh, yuck. Don't eat that one, said Robert. I won't, said Tara. She laid the wormy apple carefully on the ground. Mr. Tiffin tossed her an apple out of his bag, and she took a bite. At the cider press, Farmer Hills put on a raincoat hat before she got close to the machine. Making cider must be a messy business, said Mr. Tiffin. And noisy, too, said Farmer Hills. The class watched as freshly washed apples traveled up a chute to get chopped into teeny tiny pieces. This is called pulp, said Farmer Hills. Pulp, said Eleanor. Nice word. Next, a farmhand used a hose to spray the pulp onto canvas sheets. Cool, said Jeremy. Finally, the sheets of pulp were pressed down really hard. The juice flows through these sheets into a hose, said Farmer Hills. Then it gets pumped into a big metal tank for one last treatment. And then it's cider? Asked Charlie. Then it's sterilized. Then it's cider, said Farmer Hills. Robert spotted an old tractor as they walked across the farmyard. The tractor was red with rust. Hey, he called out, this tractor doesn't have a window or a door. Alex and Charlie ran over. That's because it's a tractor, not a house, said Alex. It could be a house for mice, said Charlie. Mice sometimes live in tractor seats. Alex and Charlie and Robert poked around the seat. There were no mice. Maybe there's a star inside, said Alex. Robert and Charlie looked all over the tractor. It had a steering wheel and a gas gauge and a couple of pedals. But no star, said Charlie. The apple peeler was the next stop. We use the peeled apples for pies and cakes, said Farmer Hills. She turned the machine on, and it peeled each apple in the blink of an eye. Whoa, said Jeremy. That's fast. Do it again. Molly and Kimmy peered into the machine, but they did not get too close. That's sort of red, said Kimmy, even though it's a lot silver. And there are definitely no windows, said Molly. No door either, said Jeremy. So we win! Yeah, but where's the star, Kimmy asked. The 3 of them watched as the machine peeled the apples one after another. No star here. First graders, they are not having luck with the riddle, are they? At the end of the tour, Farmer Hills took the class to the farm stand. Help yourself to a cup of apple cider and a cider donut, she said. Just one each, said Mr. Tiffin. But Tara's not eating hers, said Jake. Tara was still munching on the core of her apple. Aren't you done with that yet, said Robert. Not yet, said Tara. She'd chewed every last bit of it till she got to the seeds. 5 seeds, she said. Do you see she's got the seeds in her hand from her apple? Just then, Mr. Tiffin looked at his watch. Hey, class, he called out. The bus will be here soon. Let's talk about what we learned today. Well, we learned that apples come in a lot of different varieties, said Molly. Crispin, Fuji, Gala, Red Delicious, Golden Delicious, Macoun, said Eleanor. Cider presses make a lot of noise, said Jeremy. Donuts are yummy, said Jake. How about that riddle, said Mr. Tiffin. There doesn't seem to be an answer, said Eleanor. I told you it was no fair, said Molly. Tara walked over to Mr. Tiffin. She had 5 apple seeds in one hand and a round red apple in another. She handed Mr. Tiffin the apple. "This is a little red house with no windows and no door," said Tara. "That's not a house," said Jake. "It is if you're a worm," said Tara. Mr. Tiffin smiled at Tara. "Go on," he said. "I think there's a star inside the apple, where nobody can see it." "Okay, but if nobody can see it, who cares?" said Robert. "Well, I care, Mr. Tiffin. Let's take a look." The class gathered around. Mr. Tiffin took the apple out of Tara's hand. "Where's the hidden star?" he asked. "You'll see it if you cut this way, right across the middle." Mr. Tiffin borrowed a small knife from Farmer Hills. He cut the apple in half, right across the middle. When he pulled the apple apart, the class could see its 5 pointed stars. "Hey, Tara was right," said Molly. "Do you see there's a star inside the apple he cut?" Just then the bus rumbled down the lane. "Let's give a cheer for Farmer Hills, class," said Mr. Tiffin, and they did. "The donuts were great," Jake shouted. The class grabbed their jackets and bags and they ran home. "Come on, Tara," said Mr. Tiffin. When she got to the bus, Tara chose a seat all by herself. She took a bite of an apple with a star inside. Then she looked out the window so she could daydream just a little bit more. Good, first graders. So Tara solved the riddle. She said the apple is a house, right? Because if you're a worm or a bug, they could crawl inside, okay? And this could be a house for an apple. It has no windows and it certainly doesn't have a door. But when you cut the apple open and you see those 5 seeds, they make a star, just like Mr. Tiffin showed us. All right, first graders, your science activity for today, you should see these papers paper clipped to the packet you picked up yesterday at school. What you're going to do is you're going to start with this white page. All right, there's an apple outline. You are going to pick a color. You have red, green, and yellow paper because apples come in all different colors. You're going to pick a color. I'm going to pick red because red apples are my favorite. All right, and what you're going to do, you're going to tear your paper into pieces. And you're going to take your pieces and you are going to glue your pieces and try to cover the apple with your baby pieces of construction paper. Now I want you to try to rip the pieces. Now the pieces should be no bigger than the palm of your hand. Okay, we're gonna practice tearing them and working our fingers and our fine motor skills, okay? No bigger than the palm. This is the biggest piece I would tear out, and I'm going to glue them on my apple. Once my apple is completely covered in my little pieces, I'm going to cut out the outline of my apple. Now, if you want to, you can use your green paper for your leaf, and then you can use a brown marker, brown crayon to color the stem. Totally up to you, though. First graders, when you're finished with your apple, please post a picture on Seesaw or a video if you want to send me a video. That would be wonderful too. I am, again, so sorry that we are having internet issues here at Lincoln, but I'm so thankful that I can record this on my phone and send it to you, and I am so thankful that you are still working so very hard. Keep up the great work, and I can't wait to see your apples.